Lieutenant General Teresa Baldwin, now 52, quietly walks up Holly Hill Lane, her senses taking in every familiar detail of Maple Grove, Georgia. It has been 15 years since she last strolled these sidewalks, but she remembers them all: the worn wooden fence posts, the towering magnolia trees, and the modest home where her elderly mother still lives. Dressed in plain civilian clothes, Teresa carries herself with a calm authority earned over 30 years of service in the United States Army. Her dark jeans and simple blouse conceal the fact that she is one of the highest-ranking black women to have served, but her posture and steady gaze reveal the confidence built through decades of leadership. Sorry to interrupt the story. Before we continue, we'd really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us get closer to 1,000 subscribers. It means the world to us. Thank you so much. As she reaches for her mother's mailbox, a familiar patrol car pulls up behind her. Officer Keith Thornton, a white veteran with 12 years at the West Ridge Police Department, steps out. Though he appears polite, Teresa knows his record is sullied by unreported complaints of excessive force. Thornton's demeanor shifts as he approaches, and he asks for her identification, scrutinizing her driver's license more closely than protocol requires. A young neighbor, 16-year-old Tristan Hayes, stands on his porch across the street, phone in hand, ready to record this encounter. Teresa offers a simple explanation: she is there to collect her mother's mail and can confirm her residency. But Thornton ignores her reasonable request, pressing her to reveal any weapons and ordering her to place her hands on his patrol vehicle. Each demand echoes stories Teresa has heard of unarmed black citizens being treated with suspicion. Across the street, several neighbors emerge from their homes, recognizing the all-too-familiar tension of a routine stop gone wrong. Though Teresa's heart tightens at the sight, she remains composed, weighing her next move. Should she reveal her rank and end this now, or stay silent to document what might be a moment of injustice? She knows that whatever she decides will change not only her life, but also ripple through this community. Teresa Baldwin kept her composure even as Officer Thornton's grip tightened on her arm. Calmly, she asked, "Officer, on what grounds are you detaining me?" Before she could finish, Thornton spun her around and slammed her against the patrol car's hood with such force that her sunglasses fell to the pavement and shattered. The impact stole her breath for a moment. She lifted her hands in a placating gesture, hoping to defuse the situation, but Thornton's next move was faster than she expected. When Teresa instinctively shifted to protect herself, Thornton seized the opportunity to bring her to the ground. He knelt on her back, his right knee pressing sharply between her shoulder blades, just as 16-year-old Tristan Hayes recorded every painful detail on his phone from across the street. "Stop resisting," Thornton snarled. Even though Teresa lay face down on the pavement, her hands flat by her shoulders, he tightened her handcuffs several notches too far, the cold metal biting painfully into her wrists. Through the haze of pain, Teresa heard Thornton spit a racial slur. "You people always think you know the law better than we do." She stifled a cry so as not to give him any justification, silently willing herself not to reveal her rank. Moments later, backup arrived. Officer Laura Holt approached with a mixture of concern and reluctance. Gently, Holt helped Teresa to her feet, taking in the trickle of blood running from Teresa's split lip. Thornton wasted no time in spinning a lie. "She tried to break into the house next door and fought me when I tried to question her," he told Holt. But several neighbors hovered at doorways, and Tristan's recording captured the truth: each twist of Teresa's head, each slam to the pavement, and Thornton's slur. Despite the brutality and the pain, Teresa remained silent about her identity and rank. She knew that by staying calm, by documenting everything in her mind, she could use these details later, turning this moment of humiliation into evidence of the injustice she intended to expose. As she was forced into the back seat of Thornton's patrol car, the neighbors' murmurs swelled into an angry chorus, their outrage lifting her spirits even as the world spun beneath her. Under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights inside the West Ridge Police Station, Officer Thornton guided Teresa Baldwin through the booking process with unnecessary force. As they reached the counter, the booking officer, a heavy-set man named Officer Stevens, demanded, "Your name, please." Without hesitation and concealing her rank, Teresa replied, "Teresa Baldwin." She kept her military identification tucked in an inner pocket, revealing only her state-issued driver's license. When Teresa's fingerprints were scanned, an automated alert flagged her record: a 3-star lieutenant general in the United States Army. Captain Ernest Powell, a 45-year-old veteran officer with political aspirations, burst into the booking area. His face paled as he read the computer screen. "Good Lord," he muttered, rushing to Teresa Isayam. "Lieutenant General Baldwin, this is a terrible mistake. You will be released immediately, and I apologize for Officer Thornton's conduct." Teresa regarded him calmly. "Captain Powell, I appreciate your concern," she said, "but I insist on completing the booking process as any other citizen. No special treatment." Powell hesitated, but knowing how public controversy could grow, he reluctantly agreed to allow procedure to continue. Meanwhile, 16-year-old Tristan Hayes had just uploaded his video of Teresa's arrest. Within hours, views soared as people recognized her unwavering composure and demanded accountability. As news of the incident spread, Captain Powell and Chief Arthur Stevens, a 60-year-old career lawman, scrambled to control the damage. Chief Stevens met urgently with Mayor Sandra Holt, a 55-year-old ambitious politician who insisted they find any information that could discredit Teresa Baldwin. "Search her background," the mayor ordered. "We need leverage before the story spins out of control." Outside the station, community organizer Keisha Taylor, 35, gathered a small group of protesters on the sidewalk. Sipping bottled water in the late morning heat, she told them, "This could be our tipping point. We must stand together." Unbeknownst to many, a sympathetic insider had quietly leaked Westridge PD's internal files to local news outlets. Reporters discovered that Officer Thornton's personnel file contained multiple unreported complaints of excessive force, all dismissed quietly. These revelations fed a growing narrative of racialized policing in Maple Grove, galvanizing community members who had long felt unheard. Late that night, Teresa met Naomi Jenkins, now 50, and a respected civil rights attorney in Naomi's converted Victorian office. Naomi spread the arrest paperwork before them, assault and resisting charges filed, despite Tristan's video clearly showing Teresa's compliance. Teresa calmly explained her decision. By not revealing her rank, she allowed the system to treat her as an ordinary black citizen, revealing its biases. In the background, local TV stations replayed Tristan's clip speculating about Teresa's identity. Outside the police station, Chief Arthur Stevens announced that Thornton was placed on paid leave pending investigation, a thinly veiled paid vacation that sparked immediate outrage. Community volunteers under Keisha Taylor's coordination erected protest signs and stocked water stations for activists. At the same time, anonymous sources leaked records of Thornton's 7 prior excessive force complaints, all brought by black residents and quietly suppressed. Calls for departmental transparency flooded social media. Teresa then visited her 75-year-old mother, Beatrice Baldwin, whose worry shifted from distant war zones to this local crisis. Together, they steeled themselves for a long fight, determined to turn this painful moment into lasting reform. Within hours, Tristan's recording of Teresa's arrest spread across national news outlets, racking up 5 million views and counting. On CNN, anchors noted that high-ranking military officials had watched the footage, although the Pentagon declined to make any formal comment. Back in Westridge, Chief Stevens stood on the police station steps to deliver a carefully crafted statement. "We understand the community's concerns and ask for your patience as we investigate." He read, his voice steady but strained. Behind him, a sea of protesters stood silently, raising their phones to record every word. Under Georgia's sweltering summer heat, the crowd remained determined. Keisha Taylor's volunteers circulated among them, distributing cold water and snacks so that no one fainted from the heat. Meanwhile, in Mayor Sandra Holt's oak-paneled office, she and Chief Stevens met behind closed doors. "We need to find something, any minor traffic ticket or credit dispute to cast doubt on her character," the mayor insisted, her tone icy. Stevens nodded, pulling up city records on a computer. Unbeknownst to them, the mayor's assistant, whose brother had once been a victim of Officer Thornton's brutality, sat just outside the door with her own phone recording their every word, including racial slurs directed at Teresa. Before the end of the day, that private conversation was leaked online, transforming local outrage into national condemnation. Headlines blared about corruption and racism in Westridge's leadership, and calls for resignations echoed from coast to coast. In response, Teresa's circle swelled. Retired Colonel Diane Harris, now a respected civil rights leader, arrived in town that evening with a small team of legal advisors and media contacts. At the same time, Officer Jessica Martinez, 29, quietly secured internal documents demonstrating how the department had enforced quotas in black neighborhoods. Together with Naomi Jenkins, they formed a coordinated effort that began to unravel the network of protected misconduct in Westridge. As Harris met with news producers and Martinez organized records, the shield of impunity that had protected Thornton and his allies since his early days on the force started to crack under the weight of documented evidence. By the week's end, the campaign that began with a single recording had sparked a movement capable of reshaping policing in Westridge forever. Colonel James Harper, now 58 and one of Teresa's closest mentors, called early the next morning from the Pentagon. "Teresa," he urged softly, "you need to resolve this quietly. Your continued visibility could harm operations and morale." But Teresa, resolute even under pressure, replied firmly, "Colonel, I'm acting as a private citizen. My oath to defend the Constitution extends beyond my uniform." As she hung up, Naomi Jenkins reviewed the latest investigative report. Local journalists had uncovered emails showing that Mayor Holt's husband and Chief Stevens personally profited from civil asset forfeiture. Properties seized in predominantly black neighborhoods' homes, small businesses were routinely turned over to the city, then sold at a steep profit. City zoning decisions, it turned out, were coordinated with intensified enforcement, creating a scheme that exploited policing for financial gain. Later that afternoon, the mayor approached Teresa with an offer of $500,000 and a private apology, so long as Teresa signed a non-disclosure agreement. Seated across from Mayor Holt's polished mahogany desk, Teresa looked her in the eye. "I want justice," she said, her voice unwavering. "I do not want your money." That evening, as Teresa conferred with Naomi and retired Colonel Diane Harris, Teresa's 75-year-old mother, Beatrice, discovered a small military-grade surveillance device hidden behind a family photograph. Its lenses glinted ominously in the lamplight, a chilling sign that the intimidation campaign had escalated beyond local law enforcement. Teresa's security team moved immediately. They tracked the device's signals to the police station, where Beatrice had been summoned for follow-up questions. Inside an interrogation room, officers dismissed her concerns, claiming they were merely standard procedure. They repeatedly lied, implying that the complaint about vandalism was unfounded. Just as one officer raised his voice to intimidate Beatrice further, Teresa and Naomi burst through the door. Teresa's mother, trembling yet composed, locked eyes with the officers. "They're scared of you because you won't be intimidated," she told Teresa with a mixture of pride and concern. Alone for a moment before cameras and witnesses gathered, Teresa exchanged a silent nod with Naomi. She knew the corrupt power structure in Westridge was becoming more desperate, resorting to surveillance, lies, and even threats against her mother. As she escorted Beatrice to safety, Teresa silently calculated her next move, where that exposing these abuses would require unwavering resolve, and that the community's hope now rested on her refusal to back down. Teresa awoke in a quiet hospital room, a faint ache radiating from her left shoulder, where tiny glass shards had lodged during the assassination attempt. Naomi Jenkins sat beside her, reviewing medical reports with a secure team of doctors and nurses. "The bullet fragments missed the artery by mere millimeters," the lead physician explained. Relief and frustration mingled in Teresa's chest. She closed her eyes as memories surfaced. The subtle racism she endured in the Army promotions overlooked her achievements, dismissed until she pressed every advantage, and the constant burden of proving herself twice over. Her thoughts shifted to her mother. Beatrice Baldwin, now 75, hobbled into the room with a worried nurse at her side. The stress of recent events had taken a toll on her health. Teresa reached for her hand. "I'm okay, Mama," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed the raw edge of fear. "We will get through this." Despite the reassurance, Beatrice's worried gaze reminded Teresa of the stakes. This fight was bigger than herself. Across town, Officer Jessica Martinez learned that her probation had been retroactively extended and false procedural violations had been concocted to justify her termination. She packed a bomb of personal effects from her apartment, realizing her law enforcement career was effectively over. Meanwhile, Naomi's law office suffered a late-night break-in, doors kicked in, files stolen, and client records scattered across the parking lot. The damage wasn't merely physical. It was a calculated effort to weaken Naomi's capacity to represent others. 16-year-old Tristan Hayes faced his own trials. Resource officers at school searched his locker for drugs, yielding nothing but leaving his grades in disarray and his scholarship prospects in jeopardy. His mother, Lisa Hayes, 42, and a hospital administrator took unpaid leave to care for him, balancing fear and determination as they confronted harassment on multiple fronts. That evening, General Ernest Richardson, Teresa's 58-year-old mentor, arrived at her bedside. With measured concern, he laid out two options: full retirement with full benefits or reassignment to an administrative post, pending review of her security clearance. Teresa asked for 24 hours to decide, knowing any misstep could undercut the broader movement for reform. In the corridors outside, FBI agents quietly arrived to review evidence of civil rights violations in Westridge. Their presence emboldened several officers who had witnessed misconduct to come forward. As Teresa drifted back towards sleep, she realized that each person affected. Jessica Tristan, Lisa, Naomi, Beatrice added a layer of urgency to her mission. Their struggles underscored the systemic nature of the problem and the collective effort needed to dismantle it. On the morning of the 17th day, Lieutenant General Teresa Baldwin appeared on national television in her full-dress uniform, declaring with quiet authority, "My oath doesn't end where my uniform comes off." The impact was immediate. Veterans organizations from both sides of the aisle voiced their support, and social media lit up with the hashtag #SaluteInSilence, reflecting solidarity across diverse communities. Meanwhile, Officer Thornton's 19-month sentencing hearing began under intense scrutiny. Investigative reporters revealed his less than honorable discharge from the Army and a history of domestic violence deepening public condemnation. At the same time, Mayor Sandra Holt attempted a political olive branch, inviting Teresa to a ceremonial presentation of keys to the city. Teresa firmly declined the symbolic gesture, insisting on genuine policy reforms instead. Unbeknownst to the mayor, live microphones captured Holt's private racial slur, which was promptly leaked to the press and resulted in widespread calls for her resignation. Teresa's legal team filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of 12 victims, laying out evidence of quota-based policing and years of suppressed internal records. As the case gained traction, similar patterns of corruption emerged in police departments across several states, agencies rehiring officers whose misconduct records had vanished. 16-year-old Tristan Hayes joined a prominent civil rights internship, while Beatrice Baldwin witnessed neighbors reclaiming Holly Hill Lane, roses replacing vandalized yards. Former officer Jessica Martinez, once blacklisted for speaking out, was appointed executive director of the newly formed State Police Standards Commission, charged with safeguarding whistleblowers. Under combined federal investigations, legal action, and grassroots advocacy, Westridge PD's corrupt leadership began to crumble. 6 months later, Westridge has been reshaped by concerted community and institutional efforts. A civilian oversight board now meets every other week in the renovated community center. Their residents and board members review body camera footage and evaluate de-escalation protocols before they are reintroduced to patrol officers. This level of transparency would have been unimaginable before Teresa's stand. Officer Keith Thornton is serving his sentence in a state penitentiary after being convicted of assault, civil rights violations, and conspiring with white supremacist groups. His trial featured the long-silenced testimony of 12 victims, each recounting experiences of harassment and planted evidence. Former Mayor Sandra Holt, granted limited immunity in exchange for her cooperation, told investigators how corruption in Westridge extended to zoning decisions, asset forfeiture schemes, and even local judges. As a result, federal and state investigations have spread to 7 additional jurisdictions, exposing a multi-state network that quietly rehired abusive officers whose records had been erased. Teresa's newly established Baldwin Accountability Foundation, funded initially by her military pension, now develops national metrics for fair policing practices. Her mother's health has improved under the watchful care of a supportive neighborhood. The once neglected park on Holly Hill Lane now flourishes with volunteer-planted flowers and a restored playground. 17-year-old Tristan Hayes has accepted college scholarships and is interning with prominent civil rights organizations, teaching other teens about their constitutional protections. Jessica Martinez, appointed executive director of the State Police Standards Commission, has implemented safeguards for whistleblowers, ensuring that any officer reporting misconduct is protected from retaliation. Naomi Jenkins's legal practice has grown to serve clients nationwide, and her courtroom victories have narrowed qualified immunity for officers who violate citizens' rights. Military protocols have also been updated. Service members who report discrimination now receive an immediate response. Across several states, federally funded training on constitutional policing is now mandatory, a direct consequence of Westridge's transformation. The policies that once allowed systemic injustice to flourish have been replaced by measures designed to prevent recurrence. Westridge stands as a testament to what can be achieved when community-resolved legal advocacy and principled leadership converge. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Lieutenant General Teresa Baldwin returned to the renovated community center. Children ran across the playground while families gathered under the shade of newly planted oaks, tangible reminders of Westridge's rebirth. As she walked past the benches, a 9-year-old girl approached, her eyes wide. "You're the lady from the video," the child said softly. Teresa knelt to meet her gaze. Placing a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder, she replied, "True strength isn't just surviving hardship. It's about transforming the system so everyone is treated fairly." She gestured to a brightly painted sign above the entrance, "Justice through accountability." The girl nodded thoughtfully and scampered off to rejoin her friends. That afternoon, the Baldwin Accountability Foundation released its first annual report. Compiled by Teresa's team, it documented policy reforms in over 300 police departments nationwide, new guidelines for de-escalation, mandatory body cameras, and independent complaint reviews. Naomi Jenkins took the podium at a legal forum in Atlanta, describing how narrowed qualified immunity had already led to successful civil suits against officers who violated constitutional rights. She cited Westridge as a model, emphasizing that transparency and community trust were not aspirational ideals, but achievable standards. Across town, Jessica Martinez stood in front of a classroom at the State Police Standards Commission's Training Academy. As mentor, she guided new recruits through case studies drawn from Westridge's transformation, stressing that accountability must underlie every decision they made on patrol. Meanwhile, Tristan Hayes, now 17, prepared to speak at a youth leadership workshop. He recounted his experience of standing up to injustice and encouraged other students to know their rights and their power as citizens. That evening, community organizer Keisha Taylor and retired Colonel Diane Harris co-hosted a national summit on community police collaboration. Law enforcement leaders and civilian advocates from multiple states gathered via video link to share lessons learned. The movement that had begun with a single recording on Holly Hill Lane had grown into a network of allies dedicated to accountable policing. In Hayes, D.C., bipartisan legislation mandating public searchable databases of officer complaint histories gained momentum in the U.S. Senate. Sponsors cited Westridge's example, how open records and civilian oversight boards had restored faith in law enforcement and reduced complaints by over 40% in just 12 months. Back on Holly Hill Lane, Beatrice Baldwin sat on her front porch watching television coverage of the day's events. Neighbors' roses, once vandalized, now bloomed in vibrant reds and yellows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Teresa stood at the corner where she had once been pinned against a patrol car. The street was peaceful, transformed by gardens and laughter rather than fear. With the glow of sunset on her face, she reflected that one act of strategic courage had reshaped not only a town but sparked a movement. Her quiet resolve had shown that lasting change begins when individuals refuse to accept injustice and instead work deliberately to rebuild the institutions meant to serve us all. From this story, we learn that true strength does not lie in power or titles, but often in ordinary actions carried out with strategy and perseverance. The most important message is that citizenship, rights, and justice are not reserved for a particular group or class. When an individual is willing to endure consequences to expose injustice, the community and system will be compelled to change. If I were in the protagonist's place, I would continue expanding community support efforts, forging strong connections among legal, educational, and social movement organizations so that we not only address issues locally, but also spread the spirit of fairness more widely. I would organize workshops about citizens' rights and encourage young people to speak up against injustice, since the younger generation is the hope for shifting societal perceptions. As for whether racism will end by 2050, the answer depends not solely on a specific date, but on everyone's collective will and actions. If each person is determined to improve themselves, learn, and spread equality, then 2050 could mark a profound change. But if we remain complacent, indifferent, or wait for others to act, then racism will persist or may bound. Progress demands daily changes, every word, every small deed, and requires the continual cooperation of a diverse community from the smallest neighborhood to top leadership. Note, this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.